While it's less than exciting, it's imperative to a good career, so let's get into professional development. So, what are we looking to accomplish? We're going to go through the basics of professional development, the why and the how. We're going to talk a little bit about a professional development plan and how to go through a basic one. Culture, I'm not going to waste a whole lot of time on that. I don't want to get on a tangent, but we're all responsible for the culture, and let's keep it in a positive direction. And overall, in the fire service, we need to be focused on the main mission, that's saving lives and protecting property. Let me start by saying, if it seems like I'm reading some of these slides, it's because I'm trying to stay on track. So professional development is the process of growing your knowledge, skills, and abilities through education and training. Many models will also include continuing education and experience. Not a fan. Here's why. Continuing education, first off, is just education and training, right? But it's typically tied back to a certification. And majority of the time, we don't put much effort into it. It's a number that we have to fulfill by the end of a period. So when we get to that end of that period, we just get it done to get it done. We don't put a whole lot of passion into it. So the hope is that one day you get so much education and training that when it comes to time to renew, you don't have to do any CEs, or you just have to do a few of them. Experience is great, but experience is not necessary, and experience can't be planned for, right? I mean, I wish I could say, you know what, this year I'm going to do 20 fires, but unfortunately I can't. And the research shows that if you educate yourself and then you train yourself realistically, that it will actually impact your brain like an experience. Two main types of professional development are going to be your autocratic and your participative. Autocratic's going to be, I had to go to fire school to get this job. I had to go to paramedic school. I had to get those done. I have to get my CEs done, right? Those are things that have to be done. Your participative is what we're going to be talking about today. These are the things that you're passionate about. How can I improve myself and my department to improve my department in a direction that I want to go? Let's talk about decision-making models, the classical and the naturalistic. So your classical is going to be, I did my education and now I can do this steps 1 through 10 or whatever it is, right? This is a more methodical type of thought, but it takes a little bit longer. Your naturalistic is when you've trained on it to the point that you almost don't have to think about it, right? It's natural to you. So when we're talking about our levels of competence, there's 4 basic stages. You've probably heard these before. You start out with your unconscious incompetence, and that's just, you don't know what you don't know, okay? And if you're humble enough to look at the world around you, eventually you'll say, hey, I don't know that. Now you are consciously incompetent. You know that you don't know something, right? If you take the next step, decide to learn something about it, then now you're going to be consciously competent. You can do the process. This is kind of going back to your classical decision making. And if you continue to educate and train yourself on whatever that is, you will move into your naturalistic decision making and your mastery. This is your unconscious competence. I can do it without thinking. A good way to embed training and skills and abilities into your brain is learn it, do it, teach it. Okay? So the learn it part, we go learn it, we go to the class. Then you need to come back and, there's time limits usually. They say you need to do within this many hours, you need to do it again and again and again. All right? You really need to embed whatever that process is. And if you're doing your diligence as an instructor, you should be researching your subject matter. So when you go back to teach it, you research it again, you're further embedding that knowledge. Professional development is important as an organization. Succession planning is just literally, what is our department going to look like when somebody retires? What is it going to look like if we expand and add a station? And do we have people that are prepared for those positions, right? So let's cultivate those skills before we get to that point and not be reactive. Finally, professional development can be lateral or it can be vertical, right? It's not just about promoting. All ranks are going to require personnel that are professionals. Overall, the world around us is constantly changing. The fire service is no different. So to stand still is to fall behind. Thank you, Mr. Mark Twain. Now that we understand professional development, let's talk a little bit about the plan. Ever try to do something without a plan? Maybe take a trip, maybe build a house. It doesn't work out very well, right? So you want to establish a plan and you want to make sure that it's for you, it's something you enjoy. Otherwise, no amount of effort or attitude is going to make it feel fulfilling. It's a living document. So if you get into it and you realize it's just not what you want to do, change it. Move in a different direction. That's just fine. There are 4 basic components to a PDP, so let's get into those a little bit more in depth. The most important part of the plan is being honest with yourself, sitting down, realizing where you're at, and then visualizing where you want to be. And don't only visualize the success, but they say that fear is a great motivator. So think about what happens if you are not successful. As you begin your brainstorming process, you can use a SWOT assessment, which is just strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. None of that's definitive, so if you come up to something that's a weakness, it just means you might have to work at it harder, right? If it's a threat, you might have to prepare for it. Not really that big of a deal. Then be willing to do your own research and sit down and talk with people. Find somebody that's mature enough to give you an honest opinion. So once we have our vision, we want to start in that direction. We need to set some goals. My favorite mnemonic as far as goals are concerned is SMART. It's very easy to follow it. It makes a lot of good sense. I think they teach it in like 3rd grade now. SMART stands for specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and time-bound. Now, we can have multiple goals going at the same time because some of your goals are going to be lifelong goals. If you want to be more healthy, in better shape, whatever that looks like, you need to be doing that forever, right? Hopefully we're not like, I just want to be in shape for like 3 years and then I'm good. You want to start off easy and then we're going to quickly move into more challenging goals. Statistically, they say you should be missing the mark about 15% of the time. And notice I don't use the word fail because we don't fail at goals. We just get to the point that we're like, well, that didn't work out, so I need to reevaluate and possibly modify. Was it something that was unrealistic, or were there just some threats that came in and caught me and I need to be more cognizant of those? You should be writing all of this down, okay? Now that could be on a blank piece of paper, it could be on a form, there's apps out there, notes on your phone, whatever it is, make sure that you're documenting this process. Otherwise, you're just going to forget it. And don't be afraid of people. I think people are still the best resource out there. All right, now that we have goals, it's time to mind the gap. That's your goal action plan. Now, this needs to be broken down or can be broken down into some mini goals. All right, the whole aim small, miss small. The more specific you are, the better off you are, the more likely you are to complete these goals. So, if my overall goal was to lose 10 pounds, my action items are going to be, I'm going to work out 5 days a week, and these are the workouts I'm going to do, and these are the people that are going to hold me accountable. Also, this is what my nutrition plan looks like, right? The more specific, the better. It's okay to ask a friend for a shortcut, okay? Now, this isn't a bad shortcut. This isn't trying to cut corners, but hey, man, how'd you get in such great shape? Well, this is what I eat. This is the workout I do. And hey, check out these supplements and maybe go get your hormones checked, whatever that looks like, right? And don't be afraid to have multiple goals at the same time. Just make sure that you also have multiple action plans as well. Your needs are just going to be an equation of time, money, and effort. Okay, so see what resources are out there to help you. I would start with your organization. Then you can move to outside organizations You can go to colleges and talk to advisors, realize there is city and state tuition reimbursement out there. Again, we're going to talk about people. Find somebody that's gone down this path before and ask them, which certifications were worth it and which ones were a waste of time and money, right? And then also don't be afraid to just pick up a book. Everything doesn't have to be a certification. At some point you have to start taking in your own information. Hopefully by now you've picked up on the idea that I think people are important to your professional development. Okay, so quickly I want to talk about networking mentors. Networking is simply just finding people that have the same common passions that you do and then building relationships with them, whatever that looks like. These people can be found on social media, maybe it's at a conference. You'd be surprised. I mean, it's something about firemen. We can find other firemen pretty easily. So don't be afraid to cultivate those relationships and ask questions, right? Mentors are going to be a little bit more structured. Okay, this is going to be an experienced advisor. A mentee is something that you shouldn't put in chocolate or ice cream. That was a terrible joke. No, a mentee is just somebody that is receiving this advice, okay? It shouldn't be forced. It can be highly advised. So, you got a senior fireman that wants to be a mentor and you bring in a probie and say, hey, look, you really need to listen to this guy. And that's what that relationship looks like, okay? You can have multiple mentors if you think you need multiple mentors. Typically, again, if you have a good mentor, you're only going to need one, but have as many as you think you need. And don't feel like just because you have a mentor, you can't be a mentor, okay? So feel free to fulfill both of those roles. The reason I'm so passionate about professional development and planning is that the best way for a department to move in the right direction is if everybody takes responsibility for their part. We all collaborate and we move together as a team. This is just a process to make that more efficient, more effective. Now, I tried to keep this as quick as possible, but if you have any further questions, just let me know.